knitters, welcome to episode 58 of the Knitty McPurly podcast. I am Devin Ventry. You can find me online at knittymcpurly.com. I am Knitty McPurly over on Instagram, and if you would like to email me, I am devin@knittymcpurly.com. Thumbs me up, subscribe, that would be awesome. Share, comment, all that stuff. It's so good to be podcasting every week. I really wake up on Fridays and I'm like, yes, it's podcast day. A lot of things that I want to talk about with you this week. I'm drinking some green tea out of this super cute owl mug that I thrifted from the House of Mercy a couple years ago. House of Mercy is a thrift store in Manassas, where I live. Kristy Glass. I'm so sorry, Kristy. I did a little bit of research on what happened with Kristy, and I sent her kind of a chin up kind of an email. But I knew I had to say something because I did not stick up for people in the past, and I felt really bad about that. So I would like to officially stick up for Kristy, not because I think she's great, maybe she is, I don't know, but because whatever she did, she was treated pretty nastily by the mob. If you're ever in a situation where, for example, you have cancer, or I found this with people who had lost a parent or people who had adopted a child, experiences that I had not had personally, that sometimes in my effort to say something kind to them, to make them feel good, I would say the wrong thing because it was something outside of my experience. And so when I had cancer, sometimes, not very often, but sometimes people would say something that just didn't land the way that they had hoped it would. And I always tried to remember the reason that person said that is because they wanted to reach out to you. They were offering support and encouragement. And rather than look at something through my own lens and say, well, that's not what I wanted to hear at this exact moment, I try to give people the benefit of the doubt, because none of us is perfect, and we all say things that people will take not the way we meant them. But I think we need to be generous with others. We are going to be judged the way we judge others. So be kind. Be kind to Kristy. Anyway, moving right along. The world is crazy these days. Every morning I get up and I watch or I listen to the news, and it just gets a little crazier every single day. Okay, progress and shop news. I have not had a lot of knitting time lately, but the time that I do have is in the car when my daughter is driving, and I finished up another Everywhere hat. And this is the mermaid yarn knit up. I just think it's so pretty. Gigi said it's her favorite hat ever. This hat will be for sale at the holiday market. 1 week. 1 week. 1 week from tomorrow is the holiday market. Then I'll stop talking about it. This is my first in-person event like this. So it's a big deal for me. And you have to be ready. You have to have change, and you've got to have the card swiper thingy, and you've got to have prices on everything. When you sell things online, you don't have to have everything priced. So it's just different. But that's mainly what I have been working on, is trying to get everything ready for that. But I did knit this one hat, and I'm working on another one. So this pattern is free on my website. If you did not already know or you did not already own it, it is the Everywhere hat. It is forever free. The reason I keep making these is because you do not need any brain power to make this hat. It's just mindless knitting the whole time. We've got ribbing. There's a few knit rows in here. We've got purling and more ribbing, and then a little bit of decreasing at the top, and that's it. Zero brain power. It's written for air and weight yarn, which is what this is written in. But you can be generous. I am generous with what I will use to make this hat. I've knit it with worsted held together with a fingering or a mohair. Right now I'm knitting it, my one that's in the car right now is 2 strands of worsted and 1 strand of mohair. So it's like a bulky. Now I've knit this hat in bulky before and I kept the same needle size. So it's very dense and I gave it to my friend. Here, I'll put a picture of my little daughter wearing it. This picture is so cute because she's pretending to be me. She's got my glasses and my shawl and my hat. So anyway, that is knit in bulky. And the downside to straight bulky is that you can't work it in 1 skein. You need 1.5. So holding yarn together to make either an Aran or a bulky is a good choice. Now, in the one I already made that's bulky, I kept the same needle size as for the Aran, and it's a little dense, which is fine. I ended up giving it to my friend because she loved it so much. She was like, I need this. I was like, okay, you can have it. So the one I'm working on now that's 2 worsted and a mohair, I went up a needle size. So in the Aran pattern, this is worked on a 7 and this is worked on an 8. And if I'm using a bulky, or at least for this one, I went up to a 9 and a 10.5. So it's gonna be a little bit bigger, but I'm okay with that. I mean, and also that one's gonna be at the holiday market too. So some people, if they have more hair, like my friend who got the bulky one, she's a curly haired girl. She's got thick curly hair. So for her, a nice big hat is perfect. Or if you have a gigantic head, there's lots of reasons why you might want a big hat, or if you just want to, pull it down tight, or if you like to slouch it in the back or whatever. So I don't know. I think especially with hats, we don't need to be too picky. It's kind of overcast out today and cold and windy. It's like blustery. My husband and I went over to Costco today, which is always a slice of life. That was really fun. But now I'm like sitting inside with my tea. Okay, that's the progress. In the shop news, several of you asked me if I was going to have faux fur pom-poms, and I do have some. This one that's in there now is like a grayish brown, and it almost has like a stripe in it, like a zebra kind of a stripe. So here's what happened with that. I did not know I had any faux fur. So I ordered faux fur from this fabric store in California, and they shipped it to me, and it got lost in the mail. Shipped FedEx, and it was lost in the mail. Like they said, we delivered it, but we have cameras on our house, and they did not deliver it. So I called them, they're investigating it. So today I find out that a FedEx driver like dumped a bunch of packages in a swamp or something somewhere. I'm like, that's probably where my faux fur is, in the swamp. So that's still unresolved, but I'm sure we'll figure it out. But anyway, I found some that I did not know that I had, so I made some pom-poms. And these are up in the shop for $5 each. Now, I have tried several different fixture methods. What I was using before was like an off-white cotton cord, and that has some benefits, but the difficult part about that is that to thread it onto a tapestry needle, because what you want to do, there are 2 cords. This is embroidery floss, and I chose this one this time, especially in a contrast color, so you could see it really well, because it's frustrating when you can't see it. Thread one end onto a tapestry needle and thread it through the hat, and thread the other end through the hat, and then when you get it through both ends through, just tie it in a bow. Then, if you decide you want to take it off, you just untie the bow and pop it off. This is my favorite type of attachment for a faux fur pom-pom. But you'll have to let me know what you think about the embroidery floss. I feel like this is gonna go on the needle more easily. So we'll see. But anyway, right now, this is the only color I have. If they ever dig my package out of the swamp, then I might have more colors. Oh gosh, I cracked myself up. Okay. There are sock kits in the shop. They are there. Go check them out. I have a new sock kit. This one is Christmassy, and this is gonna be my cover shot right here. So this kit, you can do whatever you want with it. You could knit any fingering weight thing you want. It's basically 150 grams of yarn. We've got a full skein here and 5 10-gram minis. But I made it to go with my Modern Rainbow Socks #2 kit. So basically we have a lot of Christmassy, awesome goodness in there to go with that candy pink background. It's so fun. These are up, it's not a kit, it's a set. Kit, set, those are a little bit different. Set is just the yarn. But I have sock sets. I don't think I have any sock kits. I have sock sets up on the website. But this is new, and Gigi helped me pick these colors, and we had a lot of fun. There's a lot of ways you can go, because I like modern Christmas. I love this candy pink and this apple green together for Christmas, and then this red and blue, and then we have these two, which just look awesome in there. It's like gingerbread, and I don't know what that is. It's like the fireplace, maybe. Anyway, those are up in the shop if you're interested in that. So I've been highlighting a necklace. I forgot to use my hooks today, but I've been highlighting a necklace every week. And this time, and I actually forget what I named this, the spinner one. What did I name the spinner one? Can't remember. So professional. So this one, this particular one has a door that won't close. It arrived broken. Every time I close it, it just pops back open. And so I was wearing it around just because I'm like, well, I can't sell this one, but I love it. Like, look how pretty it is. Isn't it so pretty? It has a very delicate, thin chain. And then it has 3 little doors. It's not like it's full of stitch markers, okay? It just has, here, I'll show you the door that doesn't close. It has 3 little doors, and I didn't put stitch markers in this one, obviously, because this one doesn't close. But you can only fit a couple of small stitch markers in there. So this necklace would be good for someone who likes to knit socks or, you know, a lot of fingering weight yarn, because it only fits small stitch markers. It does fit 6 of them because it fits 2 in each door, but they're small. So one of the bigger necklaces like Odette or Josephine holds just a boot ton of stitch markers, and they come, I think, with 8, maybe 10, I can't remember. But I just have been wearing this, and I'm like, it's so pretty. Like, it's just really delicate and pretty. I forget what I called it. I'll put it up on the screen with the emoji. Can I do emojis? I don't know. Sometimes I think in emojis. Anyone else? like sometimes when I'm handwriting a note, like on, whenever people place an order, I do a little handwritten note. I'm like, can I draw the emoji? I need to practice drawing them so I can do them quick. But because I can't, I just like make a quick smiley face. That kind of encompasses everything. Okay, this is super exciting in a hypothetical way because there's nothing real happening yet, but I got a lot of comments last time saying something to the effect of a knitting retreat would be amazing. And so I reached out to Michelle and Leslie of the Naughty Knitwits, and I said, what do you think? Like, here, I'm envisioning, this is my vision, okay? Somewhere in the continental US, somewhere pretty, with a venue that will sleep like 50-ish people, with everyone sharing the cost of the lodging and food, if that's included, might not be, I don't know. But no one being paid. Anyone who comes is a participant, and maybe we could have a few people who volunteer to demonstrate something that they're good at. This is my vision of this retreat, with just togetherness and not separateness where there's, you know, the bourgeoisie up here and we've got the proletariat down here, and we just kind of sit there like, gosh, I wish I could talk to these famous people. You know, like, I mean, Stephen West is not going to come to my retreat, I'm pretty sure. I mean, we'd love to have you, Stephen. If you want to come, you're in, but I doubt he's going to be interested in that. But I think it would be really fun just to get to know other knitters who are nice. That would be nice. So anyway, we're all open to the idea. I've looked at a couple locations. My friend in Montana was like, you've got to come to Montana. I'm like, okay, that sounds great. But if anybody has any venue ideas, let me know, and we'll definitely look into it. I'm thinking fall/winter of 2022. So a year from now is what I'm thinking. We'll see. I've never done anything like this before. So I don't know even if I can do it, but guess we'll find out. Thanks for your interest. For those of you who expressed interest, I would love to meet so many of you in person. I feel like I know a lot of you because we message a lot, but it's different when you meet the person in person, when you put a face with the name. Even if you have the Instagram face, it's still not the person. It's like when Rachel sent in that video. That was so sweet because I haven't interacted with her like that before. So anyway, that is that. Okay, this week's word of the week was suggested to me by a commenter. I should write down who writes these things. I'm sorry, I don't do that. She said she wanted to know the etymology of the word purl. So this is an interesting word because it comes from an obsolete Scotch Middle English word, purl, P-I-R-L, meaning to twist. To invert. That comes from an older Scots word, purl, P-Y-R-L, which means to thrust or poke at. There's also the Italian word purolare, which means to twirl. So, purling being the opposite of a knit stitch, it makes sense that it would mean to invert or to twirl. The thrust or poke at, I don't know, maybe because of the needle? I knit continental. What do they do in Scotland? Any Scottish watchers out there? Are you probably not continental because you're not on the continent. I don't know. Probably English style, that would make sense. I'm not sure if that's a little more thrusty. However, the word purling has another meaning that I never heard of before. It can also refer to water when it flows with a murmuring sound. And that comes from the Old Norse word purla, P-U-R-L-A, which means to babble, and the Norwegian word puldra, P-U-L-D-R-A, which means to gush. There's also the Old English word pour, P-O-I-R, which means marsh. So interesting. It's just cool to me. I remember when I was in college and we would read Chaucer, which was Old English, and how it was you could tell it was English, but it was so different that it was almost like reading another language. Super interesting. Okay, brief aside. This is just a funny story. So this week, I get a lot of emails about collaborations. Do you want to try our product and do ads for it on Instagram, and we will, send it to you for free, and you can give people a coupon code. 98% of the time I say, no, thank you, because I just don't do that. That's just not what I do. But I got this one about headphones, earbuds. And I was like, well, that applies to knitting, right? I mean, how many of us use earbuds all the time, right? So this guy said, I'm an American, but it's a Swedish company. Would you like to do this? And I said, that sounds great. If they're made in Sweden or the US, that sounds awesome. But if they're made in China, I just don't push stuff like that. I just don't. So I never heard back. He never responded. He's like, delete. So I will not be pimping earbuds to you. Would you like me to though? If I found some that were good and made in the US or made in any non-slave state, would you be interested? Let me know. Okay, this week's topic. This week's topic is brought to you by Science Fair. So because I now dye yarn, I told my kids, I'm like, we have all future science fairs covered. And I've got a lot because the school that I send them to, I homeschool through 6th, and then they go from 7th to 12th. So they have to do 2 science fairs. It's 7th grade and 9th grade. But my daughter didn't do it last year, so she's in 10th grade. She's doing it this year. So I've got a lot of science fairs left to go because it's my oldest one who's on her 2nd science fair. So what she did is she used pure 100% non-superwash wool, and she tried out 3 different kinds of dye. And the reason I'm showing it to you is because what happened is not what I expected. It was super different than what I thought would happen. So first up, she put these cute little ball bands on her little tiny little skeins. So the only thing to remember about this is that because we're using different types of dye, the color is not identical. We're really looking at opacity. How opaque did the yarn get? So these 3 were dyed using a traditional acid dye, and acid dye is fixed to the yarn using an acid such as citric acid. That's what she used here. You can also use other acids like vinegar or whatnot, but we use citric acid. And this dye is meant for animal fibers. It will dye any animal fibers, and that's what it's meant for. And you can see that the opacity varies a little bit, but it took pretty good. This is 1 gram of a hot pink dye with 1 gram of citric acid. Now, the second dye that she did, I think she wrote Procyon on there because it has Procyon in the title. I don't really even know what that word means. It might even be the brand. I don't know. I think she just thought it sounded cool. This is the same yarn, the same 100% wool, and it was dyed using the Procyon dye, which is meant for plant fibers. Now, the fixative in this type of dye is called soda ash. So we mix 1 gram of soda ash with 1 gram of this dye. And what I'm amazed by is how good it looks. Like, this is the acid dye, that looks good, but this looks pretty good too. I didn't think it would take so well. Now, the acid dyes did not leave any dye behind. They completely exhausted the dye in the water. And these did not. They left a lot of dye behind. And when I washed them after the fact, yes, I washed them. Maybe I was a little more curious than she was. A lot of dye came out of these, which makes sense because this dye is not made for this fiber. But still, it looks good. Now, this one, and you can't go by color. This is a slightly different color. What you really want to be looking at is opacity. This is a RIT dye that is made for synthetic fibers. It's not made for any kind of natural fiber, either animal or plant. And this dye is fixed. Oh, I have the soda ash. Oh, I brought all that up here. Okay, going back to the Procyon, we've got the soda ash fixer, and it's called hot water fiber reactive dye. So this is the yarn. This is the dye that's meant for the cotton fiber. And this is the Dharma acid dye that we used with the citric acid. I didn't bring that up. Okay, back to the RIT dye. And this is fixed with detergent. I just think it's so interesting that everything has to be fixed by something. It's like developer with hair color. You know how, like, even if you don't delve into the details of hair color, if you go buy a box of hair color at the store, it's got 2 things that you have to mix. It's because one is the color and one is the thing that makes the color stick. And you mix those and that's what makes it work. So same thing happened here with this dye meant for synthetic fiber on the same wool yarn. It left a lot behind at the pot, did not exhaust all the dye, and when I washed it out, a lot of it washed out. But pretty good, right? So let me just lift up one of each. So we have acid dyes meant for this fiber reactive dye meant for plant fiber, and RIT dye meant for synthetics. So don't go by color because, like I said, these are different dyes, and so they're not going to be exactly the same color. But in terms of opacity, not bad. That's a real, like, eye-opener for me. Oh, and this is her little, this is her undyed one. I just thought that was so interesting. It kind of opens up the world of dyes. Like, I could totally try other dyes because it works. even though it isn't supposed to. Her hypothesis was that the acid dyes should work the best, and that's true, but it's not true by a lot. I mean, the others, it really worked out pretty well. So that's this week's topic. You can dye your wool yarn, and this is non-superwash. Now, we did not try it with a superwash. That would be an interesting experiment for next time. But you can dye it with anything as long as you use that fixer, that fixative. Does that make sense, what I'm saying there? I think it does. Sometimes I don't know if I've explained it completely, but you guys understand. If you don't, leave me a comment and I'll explain it better. Okay, moving right along to Knitting Fantasies. Okay, this week I took all of my picks from a Martha Stewart post. I think I Googled easy, quick gift knits, and it took me to this Martha Stewart page where I think every link links right to the pattern. Like, they're not paid for patterns. These are just free patterns. My first pick are these nubby mittens, and I just thought they were so cute. These are really constructed in an interesting way. I've never seen a mitten constructed like this before. They are knit flat, and then you use a crochet stitch to seam them with a contrasting color. I just thought they were so cute. They look super easy and fun. I might actually make those. I just thought they were adorable. So cute. Okay, second pick is a patchwork knit blanket. Now, possibly I like this because I like the gray with the yellow. And this is one of those things where basically you're knitting a bunch of rectangles and then you're going to seam them together. This has a high chance of failure. I wouldn't recommend a project like this, even though it's simple, for somebody who is not like at expert level, because getting that seaming perfect to make your blanket lay flat and feel nice and not be bumpy or ridgy, I don't know. And maybe I'm wrong. Have you seamed blankets? I feel like, you know, like a granny square blanket. I've seamed my beekeeper's quilt. It's like this big. It's not very big. But I have seamed it together with what I have, and that's different. That takes a lot less perfection in the seaming. Here's a picture of how you seam it together, and I don't know. It's not my cup of tea, I think, in the seaming. It's just not something I would be interested in, because I think I would make it wonky. It would look wonky, and then I would dislike it. But it is cute. I thought it was super cute and super easy in the sense that it's just rectangles stitched together. So it's like, you know, like croissants. Like croissants, how easy is that? It's just some dough and you bake it, right? Anybody who's tried to make a croissant knows that it's impossible to do. Like, you need to go to college to get a degree in croissants in order to make them. Yeah, they're just really hard. So sometimes it can be both easy and difficult at the same time. My third pick is a very, very simple pair of kind of roll brim fingerless mitts. They are knit in a sport weight. I forgot to mention the mittens were in a worsted weight. I didn't see what the yarn was for the blanket, but all this stuff is linked down below if you're interested. If you want to go find these patterns, they are free on Martha Stewart's website, and you can just print them out and make them up. But these fingerless mitts look super easy. Again, mindless knitting. It doesn't even look like there's a ribbed edge in sport weight. So looks good to me. You can tell I needed this cup of tea. Okay, so here's what happened. Some people asked for me to tell about how I started knitting. And I thought I would love to tell that story. I was honored to be asked. I have always wanted to knit. My whole life I wanted to knit. Every time I would see a sweater or anything knitted, I was just drawn to it like a fly to a flame, you know, or a moth, not a fly. Do flies like flames? I don't know. I loved knitting, and I sewed. I started sewing from a very early age. I started sewing about 5 or 6 when my grandma would teach me how. My grandma did not knit. So I did make a lot of my own clothes, even like in junior high. Like I would make outfits that were wearable and wear them around. And I've been sewing for a lot longer than I've been knitting. But I just didn't know how to learn. Like I did not know how to learn to knit. I didn't know anyone who knit. I never saw a knitting class. It never crossed my path. So when it did, it was about 10 years ago, I was pregnant with my boy. And I was working on an art piece at that time. I've been painting portraits for many, many years. And I was just sick of that art form. I just lost my love of it. And I remember just slogging through this portrait and just waiting, hoping it would finish soon and be done. And my friend, I saw her knitted stuff and I was like, oh my gosh, you have to teach me. I was like, but don't teach me yet because I will knit obsessively and I have to finish this painting. So I finished the painting and then she taught me to knit. And I tend to do things obsessively anyway, but I was also pregnant, which put like an extra layer of crazy on top of that. So I probably did my first maybe 5 years of knitting. I probably knit 25 years worth. I knit a lot of things. I learned a lot. Yeah, and then in 2017, I published my first pattern. And let's see, in 2016, I started the podcast. And then in 2017, I published my first pattern. And yeah, I went off kind of on my own a little more than 2 years ago on my own website. And that has been so great. I've met a lot of really great people. It's been a really positive experience for me. I probably could have said more in there. My friend Lisa, who taught me how to knit, she's the one who lives in Montana. Her husband's in the Coast Guard, so they had to move around for a while, but she was here for a time and now she's in Montana. But yeah, she just kind of was at that moment where I was like, you have to teach me how to do this. And my friend Yvonne, who I've gone to a few knitting retreats with, she's helped me out too. Like I think has been knitting forever and ever. And so I remember when I knit my very first sweater, I could not understand separating for the sleeves. And she's like, okay, let me show you. And I was like, oh. But yeah, I mean, just that experience, that early experience of knitting and ripping and messing it up and deciding what you can live with and what you can't. It's a great experience. I love knitting. It's so great. And I feel like as soon as I'm done here, I'm gonna go cast on those nubby mittens. Aren't those cute? I gotta see what kind of yarn they use. Oh, they use worsted. It's the blanket that I didn't know which yarn that it used. But I love that crocheted contrast color edge that seams those puppies up. Anyway. All right, knitters. This has been super fun. As soon as I turn the camera off, I'm gonna have to go deal with my humans. I love them, I do, but I do spend all day with them and they're very energetic. All right, I'll see you next week. Bye. Are you trying to bloop? We got bloopers.
We just wanted to say hello.
Rocky. Hi, buddy. He's such a good boy.
Stop petting me. I'm waving to my fans.
This I gotta cut out and put in the bloopers. I'm gonna have to drag it all the way to the end.
Yeah, You're welcome. We're so great.
Rocky.
Oh, by the way, I got
Look at him. He's such a good boy. What's going on, Kiki?
ta-ta. I just want to
Did you bloop it out?